Have painted a deadly picture of South Africa's roads. More than 40 people on average have died every day on the road since the start of the festive season. There's been 767 fatalities. That's a 16% increase from the previous year. Transport Minister Dr. Blade Nzimande has released the annual mid-festive season preliminary road safety report in Pretoria today. According to the report, KwaZulu-Natal had the most deaths at 162. The Northern Cape had the least, but the highest percentage increase at 71%. Joining us for more on this from our Pretoria studio is Layton Beard. He's the spokesperson for the Automobile Association of South Africa. Thanks so much for your time on the Full View tonight. What do you think of those numbers?
Yeah, good evening, Nzinga. I mean, obviously, it's a 16% increase over the same period last year. I think very concerning figures. It doesn't appear that these numbers are coming down. We had the same discussion in December 2017. We had the same discussion in December 2016. These numbers are not going down. They're either staying where they are or they're just getting higher every year. Very, very worrying and absolutely concerning.
We have a goal of trying to halve road deaths by 2020. With these kind of numbers coming out, is that achievable?
No, I think when you look at these numbers and you look at the annual figures of around 14,000, we're looking at around 14,000 deaths a year, around about 135 to 138,000 deaths over the last 10 years. It's highly unlikely that the Decade of Action goals, which are to halve the number of road deaths by 2020, are likely to materialize. I think, unfortunately, the situation in South Africa is that road deaths appear to have stabilized at around 14,000 and are increasing in some years over that as well. So, again, very concerning. And really, I think it requires some drastic action. We said the same thing last year as well, and in 2016 and in 2015. This is a national crisis and it requires some really drastic, urgent intervention. So
what would you as the AA propose, and what kind of interventions would you suggest to stop these deaths?
I think the Minister touched on it today, and I think that one of the proposals that he had was to approach the Department of Justice to expedite the prosecutions of those who are found to have flouted road laws and road regulations. And I think that that would send a very strong message to the motoring public that you cannot get away with disobeying the rules of the road. There are consequences for your actions. Unfortunately, at the moment, too many people think that there are no consequences, and a message like that, I think, is timely and would certainly, I think, we think in a small way, maybe address this issue of motorists who believe that they're above the law. We often say that government needs to do more. There needs to be speedier prosecution. There needs to be more law enforcement. There needs to be safer roads out there. We understand all of these things, and I think the Minister acknowledges that government still has a lot to do. He also, for instance, spoke about corruption at testing centres, which has a knock-on effect of not only putting bad cars on the road, but putting bad drivers on the road as well. So there's a lot that needs to happen from a government politics point of view. But at some point, as motorists, as road users, we have to ask ourselves, what is my role here, and how am I contributing to road safety? And when we look at these numbers, there are hundreds of thousands of drivers out there who are very good drivers, who obey the rules of the road, who are consistent in their driving habits and know exactly what is happening on the road when they're on it. There are unfortunately too many other drivers out there who simply disregard those rules of the road. And we have to ask those drivers, how are you contributing to making roads and road usage in South Africa safer? And I think, honestly, they aren't. So it's really a question of a lot of motorists have to do some introspection and have to ask themselves, are they safe or aren't they? And I think the numbers aren't stacking up. It's clear that there are a lot of drivers out there who simply don't care.
With these number of fatalities in South Africa, would you say that behavior is the main problem, or is it also the state of the motor vehicles on the road, and how would you quantify the two?
Well, look, I mean, when you look at the statistics from 2017, 5% was the environmental factors. So, in other words, the condition of the road. Perhaps there were heavy storms. Maybe it was, bad visibility scenarios. So those contributed 5% to the fatal crashes on our roads. Then we look at the condition of cars. They contributed 5% to the crashes of the roads as well. by far and away the largest contributor of accidents and crashes in South Africa and contributor to fatalities on our roads, human behavior. Speeding, drinking and driving, drinking and walking, running over a road when it's busy, not being visible as a pedestrian, texting and driving, talking on your cell phone and driving, not putting your seatbelt on. These are human factors. These are behaviors that people can change. People can decide, I am not going to break the law and drive over a solid white line to pass a vehicle in front of me. I will have to wait until it's my chance to do that. I'm not going to take the law into my own hands. And until that human behavior changes, these numbers are just going to add up year upon year.
So with that kind of change needed in order to stop this carnage that we're seeing on our roads, practically, and if the legislation that we were speaking about earlier is implemented, how long would it take to not only scare people into changing their behavior, but also make sure that it's a normal thing? It's not a thing that you get a prize for or get acknowledgement for.
Yeah, it's a great question, Nzinga, and I don't know what the answer is to that. You know, it could take 6 months, it could take 6 years, and it could take anything in between as well. I don't know the answer to that. What I do know, and what the AA's position is that we need to do something now. We can't say that it's going to take a long time to implement something, therefore we're not going to do it. And I don't think that the Ministry of Transport or the Department of Transport has that view. I think they are trying to be as pragmatic as possible. There are certain things that need to happen. We need to see more roadblocks. I think what we've seen at the moment is that since the beginning of December, we've had 380 odd roadblocks throughout the country. Maybe there is a need for more of those. We do need to see that prosecutions are expedited. We do need to see that there are consequences for bad drivers on our roads. And unfortunately, at the moment, we aren't seeing that. And drivers, again, need to take responsibility for their actions. And they're simply not doing that. And that, I think, is also a question of education at a very young age. I mean, the Automobile Association, for instance, is involved in road safety campaigns with children as young as 6 years old. We have to start teaching children, these are road signs, this is how you're a better pedestrian, this is where you can walk, this is where you can't walk, and it starts with them. And unless we get that going on a huge scale, you know, we need to kind of get this education going. People need to be educated, and people need to understand that there are consequences for their actions.
We've spoken about generally how people should behave on the road. Let's talk about, as our viewers are going to their festive season destinations, they're going home, what tips the AA would suggest to make sure they are as safe as possible on their journey?
So the first thing that we would say is make sure your car and your tires are in a good condition, and that includes your spare tire. Make sure the vehicle is in good enough shape to take you to your destination, and then obviously bring you back again. I think the most important thing that you can take on the trip, especially if you're going on a longer trip, is take the right mindset. Have the right attitude when you get behind the wheel of that car. Understand that the roads are going to be busy, especially from today. A lot of people going on holiday, a lot of people taking leave to go visit families. The Minister also mentioned that in his speech today. So take the right attitude and understand you will be sharing the road with a lot of other motorists and a lot of other road users. If you're a pedestrian, make yourself visible. Make yourself respect the motorists. Motorists respect pedestrians. You know, obey the rules of the road, get off your cell phones, and arrive at your destination in one piece.
Thanks so much for your time on The Full View at SABC News Tonight. AA spokesperson Layton Beard speaking to us about road safety. It's time for a short break. I have more business and world news for you when we come back. Please stay with us.